Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council for April 11th, 2023. It's now 6:01 p.m. And I'll begin by acknowledging that the city of Fernie is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded traditional territory of the Yakut. We recognize that we live and work within their vast land. Kanahunik are from Yakut and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. And before I call the meeting to order, I'd also like to, on behalf of the city of Fernie, extend our deepest condolences to the Sombrowski family. Arthur Sombrowski, who is also a personal friend, had a long history as the chair of the city's design review panel, and as such had a significant impact on the built character of our community. As chair of the panel, Arthur distinguished himself with a high level of thoroughness, fairness, and consistency. The city owes him a debt of gratitude. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. And we have a communication link to the specified place and consistent the following recommendation, that if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time that quorum can be achieved and the public notice requirements met. Can I get a mover, Councillor McKay, and a seconder, Councillor Hamilton? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? None. Thank you. I'll now ask for approval of the agenda and any late items. Seeing no late items, can I ask for a mover, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Kelly? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And the agenda is so approved. I'll now ask for the adoption of the minutes of our previous council meeting held on March 28th, 2023. Mover, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Nixon, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. For me, I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.73 of the procedure bylaw to address council, excluding matters for which speakers must not address council regarding matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. For me, and a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. As such, I'll ask Ms. Rhodes if there's anybody online or at the specified place who wishes to speak.
No, your worship, no one indicating they wish to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Seeing none. This moves us on to item 8.1. Zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2482, 2022 for adoption. Can you read this out recommendation?
Certainly, Your Worship, the recommendation is that council adopt the zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2482, 2022.
Can I ask for a mover? Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And then item 8.2 zoning bylaw 1750 amendment number 2486 2023. A report from the city planner.
Tonight we're looking at bylaw number 2486, which is a rezoning proposal for 1360 McLeod Avenue. The proposal is to rezone from RWF, which is residential West Fernie, to R1 SL. This would facilitate the potential subdivision of the subject lot into 3 small lots, each with a parcel frontage of 11.17 meters. Our rationale for recommending approval tonight is that it is consistent with the OCP and the affordable housing strategy. It is worth noting, however, that this is an R1 SL rezoning application for West Fernie, which we really haven't seen yet. We commonly see R1 SL rezoning applications for Main Town Annex and the other established neighborhoods in town. Because this is for West Fernie, the West Fernie zoning is fairly new. It went through a fairly strenuous public participation process to come up with that zoning. Staff also wants to note that we should pay some attention to the public input on this rezoning application if council moves forward with first and second reading tonight. As the neighborhood may have some comments on that previous zoning that went through that public participation period. So we are recommending approval because it is consistent with our OCP, but we also think that the public that is living in West Fernie may have some constructive comments on the application as well. So wait to hear from them on that. So quick summary of recommendations that council approve the application and move forward with first and second reading of the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simley. Any questions? Is the the decision to approve and go ahead, is it significantly out of step with any of the feedback that we received during the public consultation? Do we have a sense of that we met with opposition or?
Not to my knowledge. I think that the zoning was written so that a lot this size could be subdivided into 2, and 3 wasn't really considered. Like there's no language in the OCP in opposition to it in the West Fernie section of the OCP, for example. So it wasn't really brought up as something that wasn't wanted necessarily, but again, it is moving away from that sort of new zoning of West Fernie.
And in the report, the frontage is not significantly different, even at 3 lots from other existing lots in West Fernie.
That's correct. Yeah, it's I mean, it's 2/3 versus 1/2, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That we just sparked a question in my mind, and this is probably perhaps more of a philosophical question for the planning department, and that's with regards to when we're thinking about municipal planning and zoning areas, is the philosophical intent inclusive or exclusive? As in, you could put anything there that we've decided is okay, or you can't put anything there that we haven't decided is okay. Meaning, if it hasn't been explicitly forbidden, is it okay to propose, or is it more a case of you can only build what has been previously decided for that location? Yeah, I don't know if my question is clear, but.
yeah, sorry, your worship, through the councillor McIsaac. I'll try to sort through it and stop me and reword.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, the OCP sort of guides what we would allow in an area, right? So that's sort of the inclusive side of things, and in this case, the OCP supports infill in this neighborhood. So if that answers your question as far as philosophically, yes, we would allow or recommend approval of something like this based on the OCP. Again, that being said, there was an OCP process for the main part of the OCP, which allowed it, or which would allow it, or supports our recommendation, put it that way. And then there was a second OCP process for when West Fernie came in. And it doesn't specifically say in the West Fernie section, we don't want this to happen. It just, it said, it doesn't, so we lean on what was previously discussed in the first OCP iteration, that it is a neighborhood in Fernie, and that neighborhood in Fernie is supports that type of rezoning and subdivision.
I think that's very, just a follow-up, your worship, and so essentially what I'm hearing you saying is we're actually, it's not just technical, we're actually acting like West Fernie is part of Fernie.
That's right.
That's great. Thank you.
And as such, this is a sort of a step in defining that.
Mhm.
To your comment about this is sort of the first of these types of rezonings in West Fernie.
That's correct, your worship, and I can't comment on any future potential rezonings of this nature. I mean, this lot may be unique in that it is an empty lot that can potentially be divided into three. Whereas we have other lots this size that they may have homes on them already that would preclude a rezoning and a subdivision or something along those lines, so. This may move forward, we may see more of these in the future, but given what's already built in West Fernie, we may not, and I haven't done that research to find that out yet, but.
So it doesn't necessarily establish precedent based on, because it's a unique, so it's
Yes,
case by case.
Exactly, your worship, we look at each application as a unique application and no one application sets precedent for another.
Absolutely, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
I have another question that's not directly related to the rezoning, but with regards to the densification. I know last term we had a letter come from a resident in West Fernie, and that's what triggered the question was the location more than anything, about snow sliding off the roof and basically from the neighbors in there. And I'm just curious if more of an update, if we have an update from staff on how do we restrict that from happening again and make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Hamilton, I mean, the setbacks that are associated with each zone would require a new building built in a manner that snow sliding wouldn't be an issue. Where we may run into issues is where there's an existing building right on the property line. In that case, there's not really anything in the building code that says that you need to put snow dams on there or something along those lines. But we will work with applicants to ensure that potential hazard is mitigated in this case. I mean, when we receive a subdivision application for this property, if the zoning is approved, for example, we can work with that applicant to ensure that when the buildings are built, they're built in a manner that there's no snow sliding.
Any other questions? Councillor
I'd say my own real concern relates to parking. Once this is parcel building rezoned, is that off street? Is there any stipulations like that involved or no?
Yeah, your worship, Councillor Shoesmith, with the subdivision, they would need to provide parking as per the zoning bylaw, which is 2 parking spaces per lot. So in this case, a total of 6 parking spaces would need to be provided if there's 3 lots created. All off-street parking spaces. They could apply for a variance, for example, to say 1 or along those lines, but that would be vetted by us and reviewed by us, and if it's appropriate, then we could potentially move forward with that, but we typically don't see that with the single lots. We generally ask for 2 parking spaces.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Worship, and it might be too early to ask this question, but with the changes with regarding to R4 zone that are coming down from the provinces, it's going to become moot. As in, will this will be required to allow for dwellings on a lot? We might not know all the details of what the provinces let out there yet, but I presume at some point, either through the course of this particular application or an upcoming one, we're gonna be able to answer that question.
Yeah, your worship, Councillor Isaac, we're just working with the legislation that's in place right now, and if that does change, then there potentially can become, but
Thank you.
Go into detail on that.
Ask you to read, Councillor. No.
I'm good. I was there.
Make sure.
I'm sure.
It's becoming.
Like a good idea.
Thank you, everybody. Can I ask you to read the recommendation?
So there are 2 recommendations. The first is that council approve the application to amend zoning bylaw number 1750 by rezoning 1360 McLeod Avenue from RWF low density residential West Fernie to R1 SL, single family residential small lot.
Moved by Councilor Schuster, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
And the second recommendation is that zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2486, 2023 be given first and second readings.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Mapazic. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Item 8.3, zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment number 2488, 2023, report from our city planner.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is another rezoning application, this time for 20 Elkview Drive from R1, single family residential to R1B, single detached plus residential. This would allow for the conversion of an existing garage on the site to be converted into a secondary dwelling unit. That dwelling unit is detached from the house. Again, this one is consistent with the OCP and the affordable housing strategy, and supported as such. There is a potential issue with geotechnical and slopes on this site. We are working with the applicant right now through the hazard lands development permit process. The applicant would need to provide us with a geotechnical report stating that the proposed development is safe for the intended use. So as part of that, if this zoning is approved, as part of that development process, they would need to prove out that the slope is not going to affect the development. Again, very brief presentation, but our recommendations are that council approve the application and move forward with first and second reading of the bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Simulini. Any questions? Seeing none.
So the first recommendation is that council approve the application to amend the zoning bylaw number 1750 by rezoning 20 Elkview Drive from R1 single family residential to R1B single detached plus residential.
Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor Schuster. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unanimous.
And that zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2488, 2023 be given first and second reading.
Councilor Bobby Kelly moves, Councilor Schuster seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Justice, thank you. That's also unanimous. Item 8.4, waste regulation bylaw number 1845, amendment bylaw number 2492, 2023, and municipal ticket information bylaw number 2041, amendment bylaw number 2493, 2023, a report from project engineer line.
Thank you. All right, I'm here today to provide council an update on the process of changing where Fernie's recycling goes from Green for Life to Recycle BC. We've kicked off our transition as of the beginning of this month, you might have noticed on Facebook and our Fernie website. The first curbside collection to head to Recycle BC will be July 6th. In order to prepare our residents, our collector and staff for this transition, today I'm here to talk about bylaw changes. There's two bylaws to be talked about today, waste regulation and the municipal ticket information bylaw. This transition was a really good opportunity to do a holistic review of the waste regulation bylaw. That's the recycling part. So we'll dive right into those sections that are proposed amendments, which you can see on the left side of your screen. First, under definitions, we've updated the recyclable waste to reflect what items Recycle BC accepts. Secondly, under waste containers, we've added a clause that keeps carts at their registered addresses, no more taking them with you if you move, which I hear has happened. We've also included a fee to cover the replacement or repair costs for willful or accidental damage to the carts. The city will still cover typical wear and tear of your carts and any damage that occurs due to mishandling by our staff or our collector. The repair and replacement costs are based on the fees charged by our collector to come out and attend the carts. In last year, for example, our collector determined that there was 53 repairs done on garbage carts and 6 cart replacements, and there were 9 recycling cart repairs. If I use those costs that I proposed here, the replacement and repair cost for 2022 was $8,760. Because we weren't tracking back then how the carts were damaged, we don't know how many of those repairs or replacements were due to user issues versus operator issues, but it is a larger amount of money. Section 7 is where the bulk of the changes happen in the recycling program. Previously, the city had promoted using plastic bags to corral small pieces of recycling in the cart, but plastic bags are not accepted curbside by Recycle BC, so we've changed the language in that clause to reflect the acceptable bundling practices of Recycle BC. 4 new clauses were included. Sorry, to include to support the city and our collector in limiting contamination as required by our new contract with Recycle BC. The collector can now refuse to collect a cart that is out of compliance with the bylaw. The city can suspend collection for being non-compliant. City officials or representatives may open recycling carts to inspect the contents. And we can tag carts to educate users of issues or positive reinforcement for a job well done. And finally, to ensure Fernie stays on top of the list of acceptable items, we've included a clause in that allows for a list and updates to be published in a manner that's readily accessible to the public, such as fernie.ca or on our public court boards. That ensures we don't have to update this bylaw every time new items are accepted by Recycle BC for recycling. Section 12 and section 13 were updated just to bring them in line with the rest of the city bylaws. And Schedule A is the part of the bylaw that lays out the monthly service charges for waste and recycling, as well as where the cart repair and replacement costs live. As I've stated before, Recycle BC will provide a monetary payback to Fernie for participating in the program. We will be reducing the cost of waste and recycling services starting in 2024. Previously, I had proposed a mid-year reduction to 2023 rates. However, some users pay in advance for the whole year, and other users have set up direct deposits every month for monthly withdrawal. And we determined that it would be a significant financial and personnel cost to city personnel to start reductions here. And that was kind of seen last year, Q3, when we did that utility fee. That ends the waste regulation bylaw changes. The municipal ticket information bylaw changes are very simple. On the other hand, the changes were made just to the referencing column numbers to ensure they tied back to the correct clause in the waste regulation bylaw. No changes were made to any ticket information, they stayed the same. And there is the staff recommendation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? I was a little bit curious about our communication plan, particularly as we, in the same discussion, we're talking about improving the service, passing on the savings to our residents, but we're also talking about ticketing. And I want to ensure that people, like, we're comfortable as an organization that we've given people enough notice, enough education, so we're not then suddenly surprised me with tickets. If
Yeah, absolutely not, Mayor Milligan. So our focus and Recycle BC's focus is always education first and support the users before ever coming to ticketing. That's why the municipal ticket information bylaw had to be updated, just so it referred back to the right clause, but it's not my intent to bring that up as we are gonna ticket people. It is more the changes of the bylaw that allow us to open the lids and look at the contents and allow us to tag the cards. And we made up these lovely little oops cards that we will have. And it'll say, oops, you put in plastic, or you put in glass, or good job. And we can sticker those onto the cards. So that was the bigger parts of the bylaw to help us educate our users.
Thank you. Councilor Guy.
Thank you, Worship. Just with regards to the communication, and your department may have already discussed this, but I recall back years ago when I lived in Edmonton, they were moving to this, they did a thing in the paper that everyone cut out and put on their fridge that had the do this, don't do that list and so on. And I remember finding that quite helpful at the time. So that may already be part of the communication plan, but it was an interesting idea back then. Of course, we didn't have all the interwebs in those days. So, but yeah, it was anyway, it was quite useful, especially for having it on the fridge right where you're handling most of the stuff that you're mentioning in your second.
Well, and even now, Recycle BC provides that useful handout for just that.
Mayor Milligan through to Councilor McIsaac, we actually have this really lovely tabloid that's gonna be mailed out to everybody.
Oh, nice.
Full color, it's got your recycling and waste collection schedule on one side with an updated map, and the back is, here's what you can put in your cart, here's what you can't, and here's what you can bring to the depot. It's gonna be lovely. It's already available on the website. If you go to fernie.ca/recycling, there's like an upcoming, and you can open it, the PDF version there already.
If I can, and Councilor Ramirez isn't here, it's mostly for his interest, there's also a chat button for him.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trash talk.
It's not our chat button, it is the
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions, Councilor Mason?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I am just curious about the willful, like, how do we determine if it's willful damage or accidental damage or whatever, and then who? If, let's say the wind picks it up and you drive over it by accident, is the responsible? You saw a huge fly. And, but if that happens, is the city responsible for replacing those? If it's, I mean, if you come home and your trash can is broken, right, then who's responsible?
Mayor Milligan through to Councilor Nixon. I believe it's going to be more of a case by case basis. People, users now have to call into City Hall and say, my recycling bin or my trash bin broken, I need a repair. So that conversation already happens. And then we can try to determine who's gonna pay for it. If we can recoup some costs, not all of them, like the example I gave of over 8,000, that was all the repairs done last year, but I don't know how many would have been bill. If this supports people protecting and keeping their bins safe from animals, for example, I think it might be a win.
Yeah.
Another question too, in regards to this, the $11.28 per household saving is, I mean, it's pretty minor. I mean, I'm just wondering what's the cumulative amount that we have for the entire community for the dollars and cents, maybe Brent can, I mean, Director can help us out with that. Or maybe Director one, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Nixon. That's also one of the reasons why we decided not to reduce fees until the new year, because we don't really have to the penny how this is all gonna save us money, you know? So we're kind of waiting to see how it shakes out after implementation before implementing that credit. So we don't have that exact figure yet. But as you say, it's fairly minor, and the cost of issuing a refund of that amount to 2,000 households would be much larger than money issued, so. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, thank you.
First recommendation is that waste regulation bylaw number 1845, amendment bylaw number 2492, 2023 be given first and second reading.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Shoesmith. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous.
And the second recommendation is that municipal ticket information bylaw number 2041, amendment bylaw number 2493, 2023 be given first and second reading.
Councilor Audie Kelly. Councilor McIsaac, any further discussion? All in favor? Yeah, unanimous. Thank you. Moving along to item 8.5, tax rate bylaw number 2491, 2023, and reserve funds bylaw number 2419, amendment bylaw number 2494, 2023, and a report from our Director of Finance, Mr. Berger.
Thank you, Mayor Elligan. Hello, council. Just a short handful of slides from me tonight to accompany the report in your package. I just intend to start by briefly describing the relationship between a homeowner's assessed value again and their property tax. There's a slide to provide a little more clarity on what a homeowner's tax bill exactly pays for, both in terms of municipal taxes and the tax we collect on behalf of other taxation authorities. That said, we're a little early this year, so I don't have the provincial school tax rates yet. And I also don't have the rates from BC assessment. But most have come in now. And then the last thing we'll talk about is just the next steps in the tax rate process. And then please note that this bylaw is purely a result of the budget bylaw that was passed in March. This is the kind of the last statutory requirement of the budget and taxation process. And what this bylaw does is it provides us the authority to set taxation levels according to the rates discussed in that budget bylaw. This slide and the next slide are repeat slides from the budget presentations. This slide here is comparing two different houses and their assessed value in relation to the average assessed value. What's important here is, if your house has gone up 20%, but the average is 30%, your taxes will likely not increase as much relative to the average. And again, this slide just attempts to put that relationship in word form. Noting that despite this home's 20% increase in assessment value, council only passed a 6.8% tax increase. And as a result, the tax rate or mill rate actually goes down, so that the city only collects 6.8% additional tax, despite the 20% increase in value. This slide, I was going to do a pie chart, but I settled on a donut chart. This breaks out where the money goes from an average home in Fernie, which this year is $880,000 of assessed value. Some of these numbers are still draft, as I mentioned earlier. I don't have all the taxation authority numbers yet. But for an average residential property in Fernie, their tax bill will be approximately $4,995. Just under half of that, 46%, the city collects on behalf of other taxation authorities, such as the Regional District of East Kootenay, the school for the province, the regional hospital, and two other smaller taxation authorities, BC Assessment and the Municipal Finance Authority. The orange section is where municipal taxes go, which accounts for approximately 54% of a person's property tax bill. This is slightly reduced from last year, which was 55.6% for municipal services. And that all that really means is that most other taxation jurisdictions are projected to increase by more than the 6.8% that we have. And these fees, as you can see, are split between contributions to our reserves, Protective services, which is fire, police, and bylaw. General government, which includes administration and council, public works, parks, facilities, playgrounds, and so on. And lastly, this slide details what we do know so far about the individual taxation authorities. It's like 20% for the city is there. Regional district approved an increase of about 10% for the city of Fernie. The hospital is notably only 5.5%, but some of you will recall that the 3 years prior to this, it increased by 30%. So it's nice to see a reduction from that side of thing as promised. And again, I don't have the rates yet from the province for the school rates or BC assessment. And next meeting, April 25th, is slated to be adoption of the tax bylaw and the reserve bylaw amendment, which I actually meant to have a slide in here and I apologize, I forgot. But the point of that reserve bylaw amendment is to set up a separate reserve for that growing community funds as required in the funding agreement for that. And then the planned use of those funds, I anticipate will be kind of part of next year's budget cycle as we talk about capital planning and use for that. And thank you. Here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Curtis? Councilman Pez.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, but more of a comment. At the beginning of Director Burdick's discussion, he used the words, I'm a little early this year. To the best of my knowledge, those words have never been spoken in this council chamber with regards to a tax budget. So I just wanted to commend staff on the aggressiveness of getting a really challenging job done in a timely fashion so that we can get on with the business.
Here, thank you for that, because it was neglectful last night, not complimenting you on your work.
To the mayor, to staff, those nice graphics about how the property tax rate comes to be, it's super handy. I've had to use those and talk about them with an awful lot of people, so thank you very much.
I'll send this slide to everyone again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did want one comment on the reserve funds. And you'll forgive me because I made a note on the document, I'm just trying to open it here, about the growing community fund. I think we are tentatively calling it the Growing Community Fund Reserve Fund. Why don't we just call it the Growing Community Reserve Fund?
I kept that first.
It's a very minor.
I just wanted to keep their naming.
Yeah.
We had some jokes amongst other CFOs and he's scooting about that as well.
Okay, I'm not the only one who knows that.
I wanted to keep their name and then it has to be called reserve fund because if you'll remember a training, there's reserve fund and reserve accounts.
Understood,
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Could we work some vowels in there? Anything else?
Councilman Guy.
Thank you, Worship. I did have one question, I guess, with regards to the reserves funds, and that was going through sort of within the descriptions of the individual reserves. Many of them come with the commentary that the annual allocation from the general operating budget is provided for within the financial plan. And I'm wondering if, as we move further down the asset management plan, will we see that language change to an annual allocation from the general operating budget as provided for the asset management plan? Because that ultimately the long-term goal. Like as an example, within the courthouse, it has a set amount that's given with a ceiling on that, that's specifically for the long-term management of that particular facility. Other things in here are a little bit more nebulous, lots of our capital costs and so on, but I have to assume that many of our amenities and so on could come with a similar, assuming we chose a philosophical route of replacement value or 70% of, or some such nature like that. Eventually we would get to a point where virtually all of the reserve funds would be specified as part of the asset management plan as opposed to and funded from the general operation, but that would be the sort of philosophical goal. So my question is that the direction that we're heading? And if so, how far away are we from?
Thank you, Councillor Isaac. I don't know if that's the exact language that'll be used, whether it's, I haven't discussed that level of detail with Director Jansen yet, but you know, it could be that, or it could be the 20-year capital plan, or whatever we end up calling it, like what policy it lives under. And then my goal is for that to be ready, you know, for the next budget cycle, to have that level of data at least planned out for the next 20 years. I'm hesitant to promise 6 of you here tonight, but that's my goal.
Yeah, oh, fair enough, thank you, no, and I appreciate that, I think for me, and I think a lot of people in the community are looking forward to that sort of clarity about, especially for individual amenities and facilities and things like that within our community, as opposed to, you know, right now we're going into it sort of predictive year in, year out. What are we anticipating to do this year? What are we anticipating to do in that long-term view that I know we've all talked about at the table, we talked about through strategic planning and so on. It's certainly been the high point of the asset management discussion. I think it will help realize all that and give everyone a lot more comfort as to what the long-term finances of the community will look like and long-term view of what taxation will. So thank you for looking forward to it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Call to the recommendation.
Certainly, the first recommendation is that tax rates bylaw number 249120023 be given first, second, and third readings.
Councilor Nixon. And Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? Consider two.
That was the second recommendation. That the reserve funds bylaw number 2419, amendment bylaw number 2494, 2023 be given first, second, and third readings.
Councilor Hamilton, Councilor McIver, any further discussion? All in favor? Is unanimous. Good here. That brings us to item number 9 under business, support of UBCM Community Resilient Investment Grant, report from our deputy fire chief.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Your Worship, members of council, I'm here tonight seeking another board resolution for yet another grant application, please. This time it's a UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Grant in support of the Fire Smart project. Perfect. So the UBCM CRI grants, we've applied for them for the last 5 years, 2018 through 2022. So in 2021, we didn't have to apply. 2020 being COVID year, we needed to spend the money and carry that over into 2021. So the UBCM CRI grants are basically what fund our Fire Smart program. Fire Smart being a neighborhood program where neighborhoods sources what they call a neighborhood champion. That's one person willing to take on the role of organizing Fire Smart for their neighborhood. And the neighborhood will typically involve 20 to 40 residencies, all of which then apply Fire Smart principles to their properties. Or to typically 30 meters, which is probably lines, though they can go to 100 meters. And the purpose of that is to improve wildfire resilience, should wildfire impact their neighborhoods. So it's pretty much a residential-led program by the residents and by the support. So far, over the 5 years we've been running this program, we've had 10 recognized Fire Smart neighborhoods. We only had 7 in 2022. The reason being for that is because it's been running for 5 years, we decided to take a 3 years break. So we have gone further over back this year, hopefully we will be ready to attack the problem again. And in 2022, that involved 135 workday volunteers. So I should just back up there. And one of the things about Fire Smart is that the neighborhoods will typically have a work day. where the residents come out and then apply 5 smart principles. Either to a common area that affects the entire neighborhood, they do that in the morning. And then go back to their residences in the afternoon and apply 5 smart principles to their residences therefore. Quite agree to that neighborhood as a whole. And then it's typically followed up with a social event, a barbecue or something. So it helps to build camaraderie and so it's a very good program for agents in general. And so for that in 2022, 135 volunteers came out on work days over 7 neighborhoods. That equates to about 500 volunteers.
Sorry, your worship, you are all frozen for us. I'm not sure what's going on, but we can't hear you at the specified place.
You have to speak up just a bit, if you can try to.
Still louder than that.
A little bit.
Still connecting.
Did take a little while though.
I tried to shut off my internet, so.
Yeah, well,
I turned in progress, or still breaking.
Still breaking.
Look at a picture of like Ken Rock and talking to the camera.
So you're right.
Technical difficulties.
We are recording this studio.
That's crazy.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry about that. We lost our internet here at City Hall briefly, but we will now resume. Deputy Chief Robinson, you're ready to pick it up.
I am, your worship, thank you. So where do you want me to carry on from? Where did we get to?
I believe I was advised you were talking about neighborhoods at the time. But they
Okay,
lost us, so perhaps just in advance of that would be best, and I apologize for taking that, your worship.
thank you. So just to reiterate then, in 2020, over the duration of 5 years, we've had 10 recognized fire smart neighborhoods, 7 recertified or renewed their recognition status in 2022, and the reason for that is 2 of those were the polls, and 1 actually lost their community champion, which we're still planning to find a new one to take on that position moving forward. And so in 2022, for work days, there was 135 volunteers came forward over the 7 neighborhoods, which equated to 500 volunteer hours in 2022. And there were 150 staff hours in support of the Fire Smart program in 2022. And that is distributed amongst the career firefighters, all of which are certified as local Fire Smart representatives. So the grant breakdown for 2023, the total ask of CRI will be 185,000. We allowed a maximum to 200,000, but 185 is where we said that. 32,000 of that will go to a Fire Smart coordinator, which equates to 400 hours in support of the Fire Smart program. And it's a grant requirement if we need to apply for this grant again in 2024. UBCM have realized that in support of the Fire Smart program, it takes incremental staff hours over and above normal staff positions. And so they're now willing to fund those hours and actively encourage, almost insist that the municipality now has a Fire Smart coordinator, which they will be help of 32,000. The remainder 153,000 is broken down as follows, as you see there. 32,000 of that will be with a community wildfire resiliency plan. Again, one of those is a requirement for grant application 2024. We currently have a community wildfire protection plan, which is approaching 5 years old. And to apply for grants 2024 onwards, they stipulate that you have to have a current plan and their definition of current is 5 years or younger. And so again, they almost insist that if you're planning, if you don't have a plan or it's coming up live, that you use this grant to apply to get one created in 2023. And so that will be an external contractor that will do that. And miraculously, CRI grant is 33,000 limit, and quotes come in at around 31,500. But it will be a third party that is a resiliency plan. We'll also be asking for 45,000 to support our Fire Smart neighbourhoods themselves. As part of the work days, that generates a lot of debris. And so in support of that, we will send in an arborist ahead of their work day to make the area safe. We will take down dead trees, get rid of widow makers, that sort of thing, just so that when the volunteers go in there, the area is safe for them. And as a result of that 5 small work day, they create a lot of debris, and then we will send a chipper in the week after to chip that debris and take it away. So it gets rid of the ground fuels from that area, and the grant covers the cost of that. And it's typically around 3,500 per neighbourhood. Out of that 45,000, we are also buying some new hand tools. The volunteers need pruning saws, things like that, to be able to work in the area, and there's some money towards that. And we also provide some money towards the refreshments for their work days, so that they we provide refreshments to the volunteers. That makes up that 45,000. There's also 45,000 in structural protection equipment. Starting in 2023, they allow municipalities to put together what they call a structural protection unit. That's a trailer full of equipment to deal with wildfires, pumps, hoses, things like that. So that technically is a capital purchase, but we don't see that as an knock-on effect on the operational budget. And the reason for that is we currently have a lot of that equipment that is end of life, is 10 years or older. And so we're using this opportunity to replace that. And so whilst we won't necessarily get rid of that equipment, what it does mean is if and when it finally breaks, we don't need to be replaced. And it's a budget, it's a sort of the grant that has done that. And so there'll be no additional costs, even though it is technically capital purchase. We are also asking for $10,000 on OCP updates, and that will be our Fire Smart principles into the OCP. We have discussed that with the planning department, and they are on board with supporting us in that. And that $10,000 is to cover their hours to make those changes to the OCP. We'll also be looking for $2,500 for education and promotion materials. We try and visit the Wednesday night socials, the market, the Rotary Park, and so we'll be using something to get some new banners made when we're doing that public education. We'd also like to send one, if not two, firefighters to the Fire Smart conference so that they can learn all what's new about Fire Smart for 2023-2024. We're also looking for 9,500 to provide training to firefighters. That covers the cost of the course and the cost of the incremental costs in them taking that course. And then also $6,000 for emergency management courses. Those are introductory courses, ICS, which is intro to emergency management. The CRI grant does cover emergency management, and as I forgot to mention, as part of that 32,000 for the Fire Smart coordinator, they do allow 20% of that to be used towards emergency management, EOC, ESS, things like that. So that's how the grant breaks down. That's where we get 195,000 from. And so the next steps, the application is now currently BC Wildfire Services for initial review. UBC are likely to send it to them first, so that it can be reviewed over by a professional who understands wildfire and Fire Smart and things like that. And they will give feedback to how we presented that, or put together the documentation for that. And I'm hoping to get that back this week. Make any changes they recommend. And at that point, assuming we get the board resolution tonight, we can submit all that package to UBCM for final review. They say it will take them to 90 days to review and approve. Hopefully we'll do that sooner, but that's their timescales. The 2023 grant intake is valid for 2 years. So we would have until 2025 in theory to fulfill the project. So I'm targeting to complete in 12 months, so that come this time next year, we can apply again. If necessary. So that's where we're at with the FISMART grant, and now open questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I'm curious what it's going to look like, from a procedure perspective or implementation perspective of having FireSmart in the OCP.
Yes.
Director Lennox.
Yeah,
Yeah, the format would be a development permit area similar to our the avalanche development permit area that council looked at recently. There'll also be associated policies related to having designated exterior material types for buildings, fire resistance, and you'd also perhaps look at different parameters or types of landscaping that is, fire resistant as well, so that there'd be a certain distance from the house, for example. So it's a development permit area. Define it by a schedule that would be attached to the OCP.
Any other questions? Sorry, Councilor, I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, your worship. I was wanting to go back to the grant ask of 185, the max is 200. Apologies, but I missed why we were not going for the max.
Your worship, through the council of the Keller. Just because that's sort of, as much as we think we can do within the 12 months that we've targeted to complete the projects. There's also, I guess, a little bit of contingency in there. We've tried to build it in anyway, because prices always increase over 12 months. But the grant providers are typically open to going back to the end of the year if prices have increased over that time. And so there's a little bit of slack in there just in case we need to go back and ask a little bit more on some projects that might have overrun the initial budget.
Thank you, that was exactly what I wanted to know.
I just had the one question about the FireSmart coordinator and the 32,000 to cover. Presumably that staff time, and that would be your time, is that correct? Or are you our FireSmart coordinator?
Your worship, yes, I am. The deputy chief's roles and responsibilities do cover FireSmart and wildfire fuel management. So the plan at this stage is yes for that money to offset that cost, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none? Ask Mr. McFarland for the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the city of Fernie submit an application to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, UBCM, for a community resilience investment grant to support the FireSmart neighborhood program, a program that reduces the impacts of wildfire.
And the mover, Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor Shoesmith. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Item 9.2, Board of Examiners UBCM Commemorative Scholarship Program and Jeff McKelvey Scholarship Program. A report from our manager of human resources.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a verbal presentation for you all today, just about the scholarship. So the UBCM Commemorative Scholarship and Jeff McKelvey Scholarship is a program to provide financial assistance to people working in local government who are pursuing courses for learning to certification or who wish to upgrade their professional skills through additional courses and seminars or workshops. So this is one of our first years of intending to apply for the funds that are available. So we are looking to use this as a strategy to reduce our costs, our training budgets, and as a first step towards regularly leveraging this opportunity into our organization's routine practice. The state of Fernie values lifelong learning, continual professional development as it enhances our staff's knowledge base, skill set, inherent value, and capabilities to serve the organization and the community. This request for decision is before council for endorsement as an opportunity for council to support staff's professional development, training and learning as it aligns with strategic organizational objectives of investing in core service delivery. So outlined in the report, we identified the 4 individuals that met the eligibility and timelines to apply for the scholarships, and I am open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Neal, any questions?
Comment?
Yeah.
I think it's excellent. I'm totally in support of staff getting development. I think that's great for the town. Very good for everyone. Thank you.
Councilman.
Thank you.
Just curious if HR officer Neil knows who Jeff McKelvey is.
For your worship, maybe you enlighten me.
No, I'm just, does anybody?
No.
I actually asked my husband if they're maybe related. His mom was McKelvey.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I guess
just
we'll
wanted,
go next time.
I just wanted to comment, yeah, both echoing, Councilor Artie Kelly's comment about professional development, but also thanks for sourcing these scholarships to take some of the burden off our training budget. Excellent, thank you.
I didn't want to confuse it with a MFA funding for scholarships in education and training. But Jeff McKelvey was the executive director for UBCM for 14 years. And so as a result, had a long-standing contribution to the sector of local government, and UBCM established the program upon his retirement.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman guys.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. And that was with regards to the eligibility. In the eligibility guidelines, it indicates that a municipality or regional district may endorse 1 employee only per fiscal year. So how is that working with 4 people?
If I may clarify through your worship
Please.
to Councillor, that would be 1 for the Jeff McKelvey scholarship, and then for the UBCM is up to 3 applicants.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
I think they're separate.
I'm told that's, thank you.
Any other questions? Mind reading the recommendation?
Sure, there are 2 recommendations addressing. Thank you. The council provides 3 staff members with letters of endorsements to apply for the UBCM Commemorative Scholarship Program.
Councilor Artie, moved by Councilor Artie Kelly, seconded by Councilor Schussman. Any other discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous.
And secondly, that council provide 1 staff member with a letter of endorsement to apply for the Jeff McKelvey Scholarship Program.
Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor McIsaac. Any further discussion? All in favor? Once again, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Neal. Moving on to item 10.1, correspondence. I think for this one requires a bit of discussion. There was in your package a recommendation from Federation of Canadian Municipalities to send a resolution from council to essentially protest the receipt of RCMP retroactive costs, which was done without consultation with communities. So I just wondered if council had any thoughts on the matter.
Thank you, Richard. Well, I think that we could support this. The retroactive costs are significant. And I think it's exactly the kind of thing that the federal government should be helping with. Municipalities struggle with these large one-time costs. We don't have the ability to go into debt, and then actually don't even believe we're eligible to borrow money from the MFA for an incident like this. So we would be struggling if the is significant. So I think this is the kind of measure that we should support, and through this measure, be communicating to the federal government that not just this one time, but in the future, these types of things need to be handled better at that table. I agree.
Any other comments? So how do we advance this one, Mr.?
I've got the resolution that they recommend to open. If council wishes to move that resolution, I can read that out.
Please.
It's resolved that the city of Fernie joins the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in calling on the federal government to commit to ensuring that local governments are meaningfully consulted, fully informed, and at the table on issues related to policing costs, given the municipal role in keeping our communities safe. And be it further resolved that the city of Fernie conveys the support in writing to local members of parliament.
And I have a mover, Councilor McIsaac, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimously carried. Thank you. There are two other items on our correspondence agenda, including letter from Councilor in the District of Sparwood to our MLA about seniors home support fees and asking for a letter in kind from the city of Fernie, and then I would also support that. Any other discussions or discussion on that?
Also wishes to do so, I recommend that the resolution write a letter in support.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded, Councilor Kelly, Kevin, sorry. Any further discussion? Councilor Nichols.
Thank you, Richard. So should we maybe see some other people other than Tom? Okay.
I expect so.
Yeah. It's not in the government.
Yeah, all the appropriate ministers.
Yeah.
Minister, yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor? That's also unanimous. Thank you. Any other discussion on our correspondence? Seeing none. Item 11, reports from council. I will start with Youth Councilor Fernie.
Thank you. These past few weeks, I've been centered and like focused around sports, so I'm happy to announce that Fernie Secondary and as well as the Academy combined, we've resurrected our golf team for the first time in 10 years. So that's exciting this year, and then it is the first tournament for all soccer this year. So that is exciting, and again, Fernie Secondary and the Academy have a joint team because we're the only ones in Fernie with that, and they're not competitive. And then I've just been working with student council about Earth Day and getting that going in our school, and then just some fundraising. And yeah, that's everything.
Thank you. Councilor Schuster.
Unlike every last time, not quite everything is awesome, but I've been hearing a lot of really good feedback that people are really happy. We've done the outreach thing with Matt Mahaney to the builders and developers, so that's definitely going over fairly well, I would say. Not a lot other than that's really happening.
Thank you. Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Richard. I attended the Tourism Fernie AGM last week. It was very well attended. Congratulations to them for running such a large surplus of $147,000. It was quite impressive. I was also very impressed by their keynote speaker, Kirby Brown, who works for the Sea to Sky Gondola. He's the general manager of Squamish, which that community has seen such an incredible growth. He was just saying, Fernie better beware, because it's going to happen here as well. He did emphasize the importance of smart development and planning needs to be done, not for our children, but for our grandchildren. Children's. So I hope that we can bring that into our discussions in the future. I'm also looking forward to the Columbia Basin Press Open House next Tuesday at 3 p.m. at the Senior Center. Unfortunately, we have council later that night, so the informative, the guided section of it will have to go to either Jaffrey or Sparwood or
Here.
Not to report. Councillor Nixon. I also attended the tourism AGM, which I thought was excellent. We also had a lot of QR codes, which makes some of us really good. But it was really good and the speaker was excellent. So yes, that 7 generation thinking, I hope is something that we incorporate. That's about all I have.
Thank you. Councilor President.
Thank you, worship. Yeah, not very much to report other than congratulations to the tourism Fernie board. I'm always impressed at the community leaders that come out for what is a lot of work, and every one of those people in that room already has a busy job. They don't have lots of extra free time, so kudos to them for putting the time in for such an important thing. I really enjoyed the discussion from Kirby Brown as well, from Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, which I used to have on that local area quite well, and it's quite interesting. The Lunenburg used to be an extraordinarily busy shipping port, and when the cod fishery collapsed, it completely died, and it's totally resurrected itself as a tourism community. It's only very beautiful, so it's a great, very nice place to be from. But that really lined up very well with Kirby Brown's discussion about the importance of planning for intelligent, smart development in your community when it goes through rapid changes like they've seen in Scotland. We've grown almost 5 times in the last 15 years. So, anyway, fantastic talk. I hope everyone in there was listening to all of it, not just the select portions that they had.
Apparently there is a recording. I mean,
Oh, good.
so I've asked tourism Fernie for a copy.
I unfortunately missed the business portion of the tourism Fernie AGM, but I made sure to attend the social portion. And other than that, I really have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Councilman McIsaac for filling in for me at the tourism AGM. I wasn't there because I was at the UBCM Housing Summit on April 4th and 5th, which was overall quite useful from a relationship building perspective and understanding that it's a bit of a shared struggle. There was I don't want to sound critical, but there was a little bit of an admiring problem, which when it is universal, as housing is inevitable. One of the presenters described it as a polycrisis, which I thought was a great phrasing. It's not just housing, it's the labor shortage, it's childcare, it's all these things that are interconnected. But there was a lot of interesting takeaways, and I was just saying to Councilor McIsaac earlier, I will type up my notes. But some of the things that stood out were, and some of the things that we're already doing, the pre-zoning or pre-designating areas for certain kinds of development, but Victoria saying they're no longer building houses for cars. And I think it was Director Lennox that sent me a development, not in Victoria, but in Central Saanich, a 9-unit development with no parking.
Yeah.
So interesting how, that thinking is starting to take hold. And, a little more challenging here where there's snow and ice and other things that those cities don't see, but one of the other phrases that really stood out for me, particularly in large urban centers, but how it's spilling out and seeing it even here in Fernie, is that how the housing crisis is a human crisis, which I thought was a really sort of fundamental truth that we don't focus on enough. But also wanted to congratulate Mr. Simone on the process improvement journey that we've embarked upon, along with a bunch of other communities in the province. That's coming from the UBCM, because almost every municipality, even those who have this defined process that turns around permits in X time, they all struggle, even the ones that have this time. It's because it's complex. And so it was worthwhile, as I say. I'll type up my notes and show this to council. On that note, I will ask for a resolution to close item number 12.1 and ask Mr. McCollum to read the
Second, your worship, the recommendations that need to be closed to the public pursuant to section 90 sub 1 sub D and section 90 sub 1 sub P of the community charter is the subject matter pertains to the security of the property of the municipality and the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality.
And I ask for a mover, please. Councillor Ade Kelly, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, and I'd like to thank everybody online who joined us this evening for joining us. Thanks very much.